Hello and welcome to the Work for Change podcast. I am your host, John, with the silent H. I know you guys missed that intro. So this is just going to be me today. I'm actually interviewing my friend Jason, and this was a really cool interview. I'm really excited for you guys to hear this interview. My friend Jason actually recently had his Instagram was hacked and deleted, which really sucks because he was really just he was just getting some like serious traction. So I before we even get into it, I want everyone to go follow my friend Jason. He didn't ask me to do this. I'm just doing this because he absolutely deserves more people to follow him. So again, his Instagram is I am Jason, Jason, Lacayo, Lacayo. Again, I am Jason, Lacayo. I am Jason Lacayo. And today we talked about a lot of pretty heavy stuff. It's definitely an intense podcast, but that's kind of why I wanted to have Jason on here. So for those of you guys that don't know, a real quick synopsis of Jason. So Jason is a CrossFitter. He's been doing CrossFit for many years. But he is also a law enforcement officer, and he is also a man of color. He's a black man. And so he has been through a lot with COVID going on, with Black Lives Matter going on, and he has a lot of really cool insight that I'm really excited to be able to share with you guys. And again, he's just a really cool guy, and we were able to have a really awesome conversation. And I'm really excited for you guys to hear this one. I'm sorry that my brother wasn't able to make it. He has other business things that he has to do because he has another job other than this podcast. I know, it's unbelievable. I think we will be able to forgive him. But the conversation that I have with Jason hopefully will make up for Jean not being here. Also, if you're watching the video, I got the new Work for Change hat and the new shirts. They're going to be coming out very soon. So be on the lookout for that. Again, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you're following us on Instagram. Again, just Work for Change podcast. And if you want to leave a little review, that's always awesome. We were in the top 100 this month of the Apple iTunes podcast charts, which is really cool. But my camera's about to die, so enjoy episode 91 of the Work for Change podcast. All right, Jason, dude, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I lied and I said that we weren't going to talk about the hiccup that we just had, but we just recorded for like 5 minutes and I realized I wasn't recording any of Jason's voice. So that was my bad. Today has been an absolutely insane day and, we're just rolling with the punches. I'm glad that I caught it. But dude, seriously, thank you so much. Like we were supposed to record this podcast an hour ago and then I had car problems and I was like, hey, how about I should have just been like, okay, let's just push it back 2 hours. But I try to be optimistic. So I was like, dude, just 30 more minutes. And I hate doing that to people. And I felt bad the whole time, but we're getting it done now. But
I
seriously,
tell you felt bad because you kept like, dude, 30 minutes. I'm like, dude, don't worry, man. Take your time.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So the whole thing is I know how busy you are and we'll get into that. And I know how much your days off are your days off. You know what I'm saying? So I was just dude, I'm not trying to I've had people string me along with different podcasts and stuff. And they're like, and then it comes down to you know what? We're just not going to do it. And I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm going to make it happen. We had some hiccups that we had to get through. But dude, seriously, thank you so much, man. I'm super excited about some of the topics that I have kind of in my head that I want to talk about. We obviously did that live on my Instagram.
Which was great. I got a lot of good feedback from that too. Yeah,
it was fun. And the whole thing that sucks is now that Instagram leads to an Instagram that doesn't exist anymore because
that doesn't exist anymore.
So the whole thing, one of the main reasons I wanted to actually get Jason on the podcast, tons of reasons, but the thing that was we need to get him on because we need to get my man his followers back was because my man got hacked again. The second time. His Instagram is gone. And so I was like, we're going to get him on the podcast. We have to shout out the Instagram 1 billion times in it, make everyone that listens and make sure you go follow. And so can you kind of just, for the people that might not know who you are, can you just run us real quick through, who you are, what you're about, so we can, get this conversation started? I know that's kind of
all right. So I am Jason Lacayo, avid CrossFitter. I always say I'm like a part-time fitnesser. I got into CrossFit in 2000, and I want to say 2013, and then I haven't really looked back since. I am a SWAT operator out of White Plains, New York. I was formerly NYPD. I transferred so I got hired in 2005, and then I transferred in 2007.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been with my respective departments since. And I've been very active in like the community as far as going out, doing these Zoom calls since this whole like police reform situation, since the whole George Floyd situation that happened. So I've just been active, and I was starting to pick up a lot of traction as a lot of the guys that I knew through CrossFit definitely chimed in and were really helpful, and, you know, really loved my perspective because, you know, I'm kind of like in the mix of everything. You know, I'm a person of color, I'm a police officer, and I've been doing it for a substantial amount of time. So a lot of the guys that I knew had reached out to me, and, you know, like I said, we did these Zoom calls, and a lot of people were just impressed by my poise and how I was able to kind of conduct myself during this tumultuous time that we're having in the country, or in the world, I should say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that, like, for me, I know that I think Dex tagged you in something, or somehow I found you through, I think it was through Dex, because I believe he posted on his story. I remember you did that story, right, when everything was happening with George Floyd. You kind of told your story, right? And I just remember I clicked on it and I listened to it, and all the words that you were speaking, it was a really raw time for so many people, right? So I was like I was like ravenously trying to find different perspectives and understand the situation from as many, you know, perspectives as possible. And like you said, man, like during that time, like hearing someone in your position, like especially a former, you know, NYPD officer, a person of color that is dealing with that, I was like, dude, that is a perspective that I know that I could never manufacture for myself to try and think of what it would be like. Like, no idea, right? And so I was like, I have to reach out. And then I think I clicked on your profile and I saw that you were following me. And I was like, oh, snap. Like, I should give this guy a message and start a conversation, because, I mean, it was kind of selfish on my part. I was like, I would love to understand more. And I'm sure you've been dealing with that a lot, you know, like people.
Yeah. I had a lot of people reach out to me and just kind of ask for my perspective. And it was very interesting because it was people from all different parts of the United States. I've never seen anything like this. And it was that video that sparked it. It was, you know, because when I made that video, it was right after the whole pandemic situation. I kind of calmed down in New York. And when I say it was a very trying time for me in my career, I've never experienced anything like that. It was like 2 months of death. And then it was like uncertainty. And then there was a whole bunch of other things that were mixed up into it. You know, as a police officer, you deal with death, but we didn't deal with it in this type of volume. And then having family members actually in the house, because you have to think about it, during the quarantine, everyone was in the house. So usually if you have somebody pass away, there's maybe one person in there. And, you know, the ME kind of came and did their thing, and that was that. But because of the high death toll, you were dealing with bodies sitting in homes for days on end. And then family members kind of grieving over the body. It was a lot of emotion that I've never really experienced as far as like being a police officer in that aspect, because you deal with death and you know how to like really take it and bury it deep down inside of you. But this was a particular time that I never thought I would ever see in my career. It was just like, I remember going to a house and this guy's mom died on a Tuesday and we were there on Thursday.
Dear God.
And the body was still there. So it's just like, you know, a lot of emotions.
How do you even deal with that? Like for you, but then also the family members, like she's just sitting there. Oh man.
Yeah. I've never seen so much emotion, man. You see emotion during like these calls where you go to someone's house and like, you know, a family member passes away. But it was just a little bit different because the funeral process was different as well. It was only immediate family, and it was like a short viewing, and then, you know, the body was put into the ground, and that was that. So you had people who probably wanted to send their, give their respects and, you know, send these people off in a proper manner, and they couldn't do it because of the COVID restrictions. So that was a whole nother realm in itself, because we basically were telling people, hey, say your last goodbyes, because you're probably not going to be able to do this again, you know? And that was tough. tough. It was, I've been a cop 15 years. I never thought I'd see anything like that. This year has probably been the most challenging year of my career, hands down.
It's interesting hearing you say that, because I think, like, I'm just being honest as like a regular civilian that has, I'm just a regular dude. For me, when I think of, oh man, it must be so hard for the cops right now, I'm just thinking because of the racial tensions, which are like legit, and I'm sure that's a big part of it. But like it's almost like because of everything that's gone on with that, it's like I forgot about this whole, COVID pandemic thing that was going on, and like there were a lot of people dying, and like you were saying, you normally at work, and I might be putting words in your mouth, but you were kind of saying like it was like easy to kind of decompartmentalize. Like, okay, there was, this happened, but that was work. I'm off work now. Let's move on with my day. But it was like, probably felt like it was almost impossible to get away from, because, it was media wise, right? Like there's nothing, no one is talking about anything other than that.
Yeah, there was no escaping work. It was, you were constantly, our schedules changed too. People don't understand that cops were asked to change their schedule at the drop of a dime. Mm-hmm. So most departments went to like a 12-hour work shift just to reduce the infection rate. Because if you have bodies there for a longer period of time, instead of having 3 shift changes, you do 1 shift change. That will basically reduce the infection rate. So we went from working, my department, they work 8-hour tours. They went from working 8s to 12s. So, and I know it's different from department to department across the country, but I know for us, it was challenging because, 12-hour days of just dealing with the same thing every single day. It gets a little redundant. And then not only the redundancy, but the emotion and how draining it was to see people days on end. And it wasn't only like just there was a lot of psychological effect to some of these families. I remember going to a call and a man was so scared to leave his house because he just was scared that he would contract COVID. You know what I mean? So he was physically had the shivers. We gave him a bottle of water. He couldn't even hold a bottle of water to drink it. You know what I mean? So you have the psychological aspect of it too. So all that compounded, and you're doing this for it was 2 months for us. And we were like the hotbed. We were in the belly of the beast, so to speak. So it was just constantly dealing with that every single day. It was crazy, man. I know 10 years from now when I'm retired and I'm done and whatever, I know that's going to be something that I'll remember. Like 2020 was a very trying year for me, at least. And for any police officer, you got to think about it. You got a young guy that just came on the job. Oof. He doesn't know anything else. The only thing he knows is, hey, I came on and COVID hit. This is going to be something that's going to be in the history books.
Well, and then that happens, and then George Floyd and everything kind of changes again, right?
Yes.
And so I'm kind of curious because, and I'm sure you've been asked this question a million times, but I'm sorry, I'm not very I'm not very creative, but you are like you said, you're a police officer. But you're also, you're a black man. You're a man of color. And so I can't imagine what it's like feeling like, because everyone has such strong opinions about this. And I think there's a lot of things that I'm like, people, it can be great, but with this, I think it's good to have conviction about what you believe. But it's with that, I think a lot of people have taken it to where it's like someone like you, it's like you either have to betray one part or betray another part, and that's that's your only option. Like if any other thing you do, like if you don't quit your job, you're saying one thing, or if you continue working your job, you're saying another thing. And I'm not saying that that's happened to you, but I mean that's what I would assume is probably happening from what I've seen in the media, what I've seen on social media. Like, how has that been? For you?
Tough, dude. I'm going to say that it's weird because we live in this whole cancel culture, right? It's either you're with me or you're against me. And it shouldn't be that way. It definitely shouldn't be us versus them type of situation. It should definitely be, you should be able to just be an independent thinker, right? You shouldn't have to choose a side. And then there's no gray area with like either you love police or you hate police, but it's a necessary factor. You need us to exist. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people don't realize it. It's like when you start to defund police departments, and like I just read in Austin, they just got rid of Austin Police Department. And Austin right now is a hotbed because you have a lot of people moving from different places in the country, right? And they're moving to, Austin. So you have people from California, you have people from New York relocating there, and it's becoming, we all know Texas is a red state, but now you have Austin's a very liberal place. Mm-hmm. But I mean, you and I both know, like, if you work very hard to obtain something, wouldn't you want to keep that protected? Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's outside of your hands to keep it protected. So you need us. Mm-hmm. Understanding there's glaring disparities in police work in certain communities. There has been tensions. There has been, cops acting in a manner that wasn't, working in the favor of viewing us in a positive light. But at the end of the day, that's any job you have. There's doctors like that. There's teachers like that. I can name any profession. It's going to be good and bad on both sides. Mm-hmm. So you got to understand that it's not just, hey, one guy and you label everybody else a problem. Mm-hmm. It's different from department to department. It's different from person to person. You're dealing with a profession that involves we all have discretion, right? And we all exercise discretion differently. You would treat a situation differently than I would, mm-hmm. maybe based on your experiences and how you grew up or whatever have you. So, we got to look at that as a whole. I think people are so quick to jump on a bandwagon and no one wants to think independently, because I know people that come from families of police officers that have literally sat there and said, F the police. And I'm like, well, dude, your whole family legit from brother to like your grandfather have mm-hmm. all been police officers. I can't understand why you would even think that way. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's challenging being a person of color and kind of being called a traitor, and then like, it was great because the reason why I say it was great, because I had a lot of people who knew me were tagging me in posts where people were saying like cops are pigs or cops are this. Mm-hmm. And, people would be like, give this guy a follow because I know this person personally and I know he's not like that. And there were people reaching out to me saying that, I used to view police in a certain light, and then I met you, and then I looked at police officers in a different light. So I was almost the example. And there was a few other guys that I was getting thrown into the mix with, like Lieutenant Mike, who's an NYPD lieutenant who does a lot of community policing and does all that good stuff. Mm-hmm. Huge Fat Loser, Sergeant Aaron Lohman, he's another guy that I was thrown into the mix with. There's a lot of guys that were just putting out good, positive perspective and just basically telling people not to be sheep, to be independent thinkers, and just, hey man, like you can like us. It's not, every good cop said what happened to George Floyd was a bad thing. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like, it was like a blue wall of silence. As everybody was in agreement mm-hmm. that was an egregious act. We all know that. But then you had the protests, right? And then the protests were just like they were demanding cops kneeling. In my eyes, right, when Cap was kneeling, nobody was kneeling with Cap. Now all of a sudden everybody wants to kneel. Mm-hmm. That kind of contradicts the whole purpose of it, correct? Mm-hmm. He was doing a peaceful protest. Yeah. And then you had like a lot of people were like, well, that's disgraceful to the flag and this, that, and so on, right? And then the George Floyd situation happens, and now everybody wants to kneel because this is what Cap was talking about. Mm-hmm. The United States was built on a lot of tumultuous activity, right? So you think about the civil rights movement and, Western civilization and so on. Like we came here, right? So colonizers came here and took the land from people who already existed. Mm-hmm. This has been in motion long before any of us had any kind of influence. Mm-hmm. So for us to now say like, oh, like cops are canceled, and it just doesn't make any sense to me. Take each situation, treat it individually, and you go from there. Mm-hmm. There's always going to be a bad apple, and there's always going to be an example where you can kind of look to the person and get some clarity. Yeah.
And I mean, me and you have had conversations in private where I was, I went to a Black Lives Matter march, and I kind of like, I just picked your brain about it. I was like, hey, I'm going to be doing this. Like, do you have any pointers or anything? Like, what do you think of it? And you were fully supportive. You're like, go do your thing, man. Have like,
It's your right as an American to go.
Yes, stand up for what you believe in, but you were like, yo, just be safe because these aren't some of these.
Yeah, because there's agitators that are thrown into the mix, and I just wanted you to be safe because I knew that it's noble of you to kind of get out there and say, hey, listen, I know there's a problem in this country, and I would like to throw my hat into the ring and say I understand that things are not the way they're supposed to be, and I'm here to shed light on that. And I think it was beautiful that people from all walks of life were able to do that.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna protest, just protest in a peaceful manner. Just be aware of your surroundings because there's an agitator that's thrown into that group that is gonna try to insinuate, chaos, right? And you don't want to be a part of that because you don't want to get thrown into the mix and then you end up getting hurt just because you went to go support a movement, right? It's like there's ways to get your point across without actually getting involved in a way where you can put yourself in danger. And I just always tell people, if you're going to protest, but just be very smart about it. And don't go out there to, as an opportunity to go loot. You know what I mean? That's totally separate from what is actually happening out there. Like if you want to protest, but now looting and carrying on, I don't feel like is appropriate. So.
Yeah, I think you kind of touched on it a little bit when you were talking about like Cap back in the day. And I remember like I was one of those people, man, like that when I would hear, and maybe this is too personal and I'm not trying to make this whole podcast like this like political thing, but like I remember I was like a guy that when I heard Black Lives Matter, I would think in my like, oh, well, all lives matter. And I would like I never like would write it out or anything like that and like try and be that guy. But I just remember like thinking that. And then I think recently with everything that's happened, for me at least, and this is just my own personal thing that's happened, is like I've realized, okay, like when people say Black Lives Matter, most of them, and from what I've understood, it's not like they're saying Black Lives Matter more or they are more important than your lives. It's like, there are systems and systematic and systemic things in place that have made it to where Black lives maybe have mattered less in the past. So, I mean, definitely have been things that happened in the past, right? Slavery, civil rights, all of that stuff, of course. And it's like, I was always, in my head, I was like, well, that stuff's gone now. I would think that it's gone now. We're good. Why are we like, we're all equal. Cause like in my head, again, it's like everyone's heard this stuff, but I would think, oh, I'm colorblind, man. Like I see a black guy, I can be friends with them. I don't care. But the thing is like what my experience is not what the whole experience in all of America is, Dude,
let me tell you, I got chewed up one time for saying that. Like, I don't see color. I got chewed up because basically people were saying, well, we want you to see color. I understand that color exists. I'm saying I don't see color as I don't judge anybody because of the color of their skin. I see all, and I understand that there's differences, right? But when people say Black Lives Matter, you have to understand in this country, blacks were once considered 3/5 human.
Yeah.
And it was written. You know what I mean? So when people talk about Black Lives Matter, it's not saying that their lives matter more than others. It's just that we want you to understand that our lives matter because, lynching is still not considered a crime. You know what I mean? And this is people grew up seeing this type of, behavior conducted in their neighborhoods. Like, could you imagine walking down the street and seeing someone swinging from a tree? Like a lot of people can't really put that into, their mind because if you talk to somebody who's 75, 80 years old that grew up in the South or grew up in places where this was prevalent, they've seen these things. They, being in the house and having crosses burned on their lawn or bricks thrown through their windows or being ostracized as they walk to school or go certain places. Or like being refused, service because of the color of your skin. Chris Rock once spoke about his mother, and he's not talking about his grandmother, his mother who grew up in South Carolina. When she went to the dentist, they had to go to the vet because God forbid someone see them walking to the dentist and get their teeth pulled. And then how dare you use those utensils that you used on a black person on my mouth? There's stories where I forgot who it was. It was some celebrity at the time jumped into a pool, right? It was a black singer, and they drained the pool after she jumped into a whites only pool. You know what I mean? So this is the country that we've grown up in and that we lived in. And I think people forget that was not so long ago. My father is 66 years old and he tells me stories, and he's an immigrant. He wasn't born in this country. Really? So my parents are both from Honduras. So that's in Central America. Their first language is Spanish. So I'm Afro-Latino. I'm first generation born here. Right. And my dad tells me stories about how you couldn't go through certain neighborhoods at certain times of day because, he would either get, or someone would try to beat him up, or like black people weren't allowed, or people of color weren't allowed to go through these neighborhoods, and they were adamant about it. This is the United States of America. This is, and this is not, like I said, this ain't no 100 years ago.
Yeah.
My dad's not super old. So,
it still blows me away when you tell me how old you are. I remember our last conversation. I forget how old are you again?
37.
Jeez, man. I remember I was like, yeah, he might be 30. Maybe.
Nobody ever guesses, bro.
It's no one ever would. Okay, so I'm interested in kind of talking about, so obviously you're someone that loves fitness. You're super fit. Like, people, I'm telling you, go follow my man on Instagram. You'll see him. Like, you did the 1-ton challenge, right?
Yeah.
What were the weights? Do you remember off the top of your head?
It was 320. It was a 320 bench. So the whole thing was, I probably could have did a little bit more weight, but I wanted to do it in like a minute 30
I saw
or minute
that,
20. So it was 320 bench, 285 clean and jerk, 515 dead, 410 back squat, and it was like a 200-pound snatch. And I just wanted to get it done so I could get it within that little time frame that I just stated. But yeah, I mean, strength has always been like a big thing for me. So like my back squat, my one rep is 520. My deadlift is 615. Clean is 365. Clean and jerk is 335. Snatch 280. So I got decent numbers.
Yeah.
It's now you got to take that and then throw a Metcon into there.
Oh yeah.
So I know, my friend is decent. My friend is like 201. My Grace is like 130 something. I'm a decent CrossFitter, but strength has always been my thing.
What's your biggest weakness?
My biggest weakness, rope climbs, bro.
Rope climbs, really?
Yeah, rope climbs, man. Because I never really learned how to properly do rope climbs. So like, if you give me a workout that has like double-digit rope climbs, by the time I hit like, let's say it's 10 rope climbs, by the time I hit 5 or 6, my lats are just fried. And I actually just started working at a little bit, just throwing a workout or two a week with rope climbs. Not to compare myself to Rich Froning, but that was the difference between Rich Froning winning the CrossFit Games. He just couldn't climb a rope, and then one year he figured out, hey, I can throw this into my programming, and he crushed the rope climb. So
why exactly? Like, what is it that? Why do you do CrossFit? Like, why is that the kind of exercise that you choose to do?
I'll tell you why. It's because it is constantly varied functional fitness, and it's what pertains to my job. It's okay to, I never knock anybody for going to the gym and do traditional bodybuilding. We all started somewhere, right? But I remember the first time I did a CrossFit workout, I thought, right? I thought I was like, you
thought you were the man?
Yeah. And then I walk in, I got humbled, like, here's a piece of humble pie, take that, and I remember it was like deadlifts, box jumps, and then it was like some kind of sprint was in there. And I just remember being gassed. I think it was like 4 rounds or 5 rounds for time. And I remember by like round 3, I was like, all right, I'm done. And I didn't realize I was in that bad of shape. So I just was like, you know what? CrossFit is the one thing that it incorporates all aspects of fitness. And I was like, from day to day, when I go to work, it's different. So my training should kind of mimic how I go to work and operate. So I have a cousin who put me on to CrossFit, and he's like, hey man, there's a CrossFit gym right by where you work. You should, go check it out. So CrossFit Westchester was the first gym that I went to. And, I did it for like 6 months. I was like, all right, man, I don't know if I'm so good at this. Cause that's the worst part when you get there and like, you're trying to clean and you never really properly cleaned before. So you look crazy, you feel weak. I remember there was one day curl. And I actually, it was bad. I had like no mobility. And then, I remember they did the CrossFit Total, which was like one of my better days at CrossFit. It was like a deadlift, a bench, and a squat. And I was like, no, it was deadlift. Yeah, deadlift, bench, and squat. That's what it was.
Isn't it deadlift, squat, and overhead press, right? The CrossFit Total?
That's what it was. Overhead press. Yeah. I'm sorry. You got it. And my numbers were phenomenal. And I was like, all right, I think I could do this CrossFit thing. And then they started throwing in, he's like, all right, well, you know how to do Grace? I'm like, what's Grace? And it's like 30 clean and jerks for time. And I just, Grace punched me in the mouth. So I was determined to be good at CrossFit. So I left that gym and I started training at another gym. And that's when I really started to see the results. My body started to change. So my body composition changed and my mindset changed on how I was training. And I just remember like going to class and then staying after to like row a 1K and then like run a mile. I wanted to work my weaknesses, and endurance was like a thing for me. So I just worked my motor. And I remember like that following year, like my first open, I was like the best guy in my gym for this. So I was like, I always say this, big fish, small pond.
Mm-hmm.
So like I was the best guy in my gym, but I mean, I'm pretty sure if you threw me up against somebody else in the region, I'd probably get tossed around. But, it was good because it taught me how to work on my weaknesses. And that's why I chose CrossFit. And that's why I still do it. And I don't think I'll ever stop doing CrossFit.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the way to go.
I feel the same exact way. Like, I mean, very similar. I don't think I was quite as, was able to grasp it as good as you were at the start. But like, I remember, so I filmed my first CrossFit workout ever. Like I have it on YouTube or whatever. And my first CrossFit workout was rowing. There were some double unders in it, and there were some deadlifts. And at the time, this was like right after my Men's Physique show. So I was weighing like 180 pounds, 185 pounds. I weigh like 212 now, right? So I was way leaner. And at that time, the only kind of deadlifts I did were sumo. Like I didn't do conventional deadlifts, right? And it was funny enough because the strength portion of that class, they were actually doing sumo deadlifts. So I did sumo deadlifts. I think I got like 315, and it was like a struggle, and like that's really bad. But I was so weak. And then the workout had deadlifts, and I was like, "Can I do sumo?" And the owner of the gym was like, "Well, normally we don't, but whatever. Like if that makes you more comfortable, that's fine."
That makes you whatever floats your boat.
So that's what I did. And but the thing, like I said, there was double unders in it, and I couldn't even really do singles. And I remember, so I got hooked, right? I was hooked right away. I mean, I was hooked before I even started my CrossFit because my brother had shown me the Fittest movies, the documentaries.
Yeah.
And before I even went to my first class, I bought a pair of Metcons. Like I was like ready to go, right?
You were ready to go. You walked in.
I was like, you guys, Rich Fronning's here. What's up? But so I did that, and dude, like I was so humbled by the double unders that like, so I joined right away. I knew I was going to. And then every single day after class, literally every day, and I don't recommend this to people because it was very stupid and I could have injured myself, but I would work on double unders for like 30 minutes to an hour. Like, because but I was like, I need to be able to do these because like
you and I are very similar because I would have done the same thing if I knew that was like my weakness. I would have drilled it until I got it. So I'm no different than you are.
And it was like double unders were less scary than trying to work on snatches or clean and jerks because it was just double unders. Snatches, like I was terrified, bro. I remember the first time we did them, I was like afraid to even use the PVC. I mean, I wasn't afraid to use the PVC, but literally anything other than that, I was like, I don't want to do that.
That is such a humbling movement. Like like I always tell people, overhead squat will really make you question life. So imagine taking a bar from the ground and throwing it over your head. I remember the first time I ever tried to overhead squat, I had, mobility is key with the overhead squat, right? And then even like the way you hold the bar, everything is just, it was such a humbling experience. I was, damn, I did not have any kind of body awareness. I was like, yo, Jay, what have you been doing for the last 20 something years that you can't even do this? I remember overhead squatting a PVC pipe. I looked crazy. And I was like, damn, bro, you got to get your stuff together.
Yeah.
So I just remember it was super humble because I did not think that I was that bad. And I was horrible, bro. Horrible.
Well, and the thing is it's different for so many people, right? Because there are a lot of people that might get in that situation and their ego will just take over and they can't bring themselves to go back, And for me, it was, I don't know what it was. I just didn't care, I guess. Like I definitely have an ego. I'm not one of those guys that's here like, oh, no, I have no ego. I definitely have an ego. But for some reason, in that aspect, I was like, I don't care. I'm fine with sucking because I saw how good like the games athletes were. And I was like, if I ever plan on getting there, which I thought maybe I could, so wrong. But like, if I ever plan on getting there, like I'll have to suck at some point. So might as well suck right now. I just suck a little bit less now, but I'm happy with my progress. I remember me and my brother, I think we talked about this on the last podcast, but we thought we were going to be regionals athletes with like 2 years in.
Wow. And you were in a very competitive region.
Yeah, we didn't know what we were talking
SoCal
about.
is crazy, man. Like SoCal is one of those places where I feel like, I remember one of the greatest CrossFitters I've ever seen was out of SoCal. It was Kenneth Leverage, who I call the CrossFit Bo Jackson, because when he was healthy, there was nothing that he couldn't do. And he did it all. He wasn't like a super huge guy, but he had great numbers. He had a great motor. he just did everything and he made it look super effortless.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like guys like Ryan Fisher and those guys like were in that region. And I'm like, damn, bro, because they were all going to, OCCF. So it's like all these dudes are in this region. It's like, it's super hard to make it out of there. So I'm in the Northeast and it's no different. The Northeast is, I got Christian Harris, Matt Fraser. I got all these guys, Spencer Hendel, Austin Maliello, like all these guys. And I'm like, yeah, there's no way I was going to make it there. I thought I had a shot team-wise. Because there was a point where I think this is back when regionals existed. We were like 2 spots out, and I definitely would have been on that team if that was going to happen. But I knew that I didn't have it individually. I didn't have it. I knew it.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe I could make team.
To be fair to me and my brother, we were thinking team as well. Like we weren't thinking we were going to be individual, going to the games. But okay, so one thing that I wanted to bring up. So I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and I know these are completely, and he made it very clear as well. These are completely different professions. But it was one of the first days that the gym was back open. I saw my friend. He's a border patrol agent, and I was just kind of talking to him about everything going on, and something he brought up, and I'm kind of just curious to hear what you think about this. He said one thing that he thinks could help officers and the police brutality stuff or whatever is he was like, I think one thing that can help is having officers that are just physically more fit. Because he was like, what he was saying was like if you get in, because he's a border patrol agent. So he's like, if you get into an altercation where it's physical and you don't have the gas, the first thing you're going to do, like right after you get on the ground is you're going to take your gun out. And he was saying, so if you're physically fit, you can, fight through it or whatever it is you need to do to, obtain the suspect or whatever. And again, he said, obviously everything is different. He was like, I'm not comparing them and saying they're exactly the same, but I'm just kind of curious, what your thoughts on that. But then as far as just physical fitness in general for, police officers, I guess you could say firefighters, I understand it's very different, but what your thoughts are with that.
Being physically fit should be a requirement. I think you should have to pass some kind of physical test every year,
every year.
Does make a difference.
That's what you think?
Yeah, I think so. But there's unions and things that are in place that prevent that. But it should be part of the job, dude. You have to take it to get on. If I want to get into a specialized unit, I have to do it at a certain percentile, right? So why not do that just so I can stay on the job for X amount of years? They don't do that. It's once you get on, you don't have any kind of physical requirement.
Really?
From that point
again?
on, ever again, unless you're trying to be like a K-9 officer or like a SWAT operator or something like that. You have to take, each place is different, but I know my respective department is you have to take a Cooper exam. So the Cooper exam is a 1.5 mile run according to your age and gender. And then there's push-ups and sit-ups. So to get into the academy, it's at the 50th percentile, which is easy. And then to get a specialized unit position like SWAT operator or K-9, you got to do it in the 70th percentile. And that's a little harder because if you're not a runner, and they tell you, all right, you got to run 1.5 miles in 9:49.
Ooh, that'd be tough for me.
Yeah, dude. It's tough. It's not easy. And then that's the 20 to 29 bracket. And I think it's it's 10:49, right? For the 20 to 29, and it's 11:03 or 11:06 for 30 to 39. So it's not hard, but it's something that you have to work on.
Yeah, I think if I I was hoping you'd say the numbers because I always like to be I wonder if I could do that. I think that the run I would have to be I had been training for it for a little bit and been let's go at the start, just go for it.
Yeah, because it's one of those things where you just gotta all gas, no brakes. Because when you training for it is one thing, but day of your adrenaline's going, so that adds to the effect. So you are a little bit faster.
Yeah. But
you definitely have to go out there in drills. You got to be out there running 400s and making sure you're in between this time and this time. So it's not you're not just going to show up and run a 7-minute mile and then you have to maintain that
for another half mile.
For the half mile. So
okay, so we had some technical difficulties. We're back now. So we were talking about the mile run or the 1.5 mile run, and it has to be around 10 something, right?
It's 10:49 for 20 to 29.
And so I'm curious, if you could, this is just a random question, but if you could make a fitness test, and you were saying every year this test happened. You don't have to come up with exact numbers because I know it's putting you on the spot, but like, would there be certain things like I'd like to see running or maybe pull-ups or maybe, you know what I mean? Like, would there be certain things that maybe you would change?
Do you know that LAPD used to make these guys do Murph?
Really?
Yeah, they made them do Murph. And I think if you had to do it within an hour or else like you were kaput, so you were done.
Or was that with a vest on?
Yeah, I think that's with a vest.
That makes sense.
Murph is a little crazy because that's like a lot of high reps and you could basically get rhabdo if you do that. But definitely, I would make it like an obstacle course. NYPD has this thing called the JST, which stands for the Job Standard Test. And you start from a kneeling position. You have a weighted vest on, right? And a weighted belt. You start from a kneeling position. You jump over a fence. All right. And then you traverse these stairs. So it's basically like a triangle. And you go up and down the stairs 7 times. And then it's like this push-pull machine. It's weird. It's like 245s. And you push it in and you make 7 revolutions. And you pull it out and you make 7 revolutions. So it's like half a circle. And then after you do that, you do a pursuit run. I think it's like a 400-meter pursuit run. So basically it's like a lap around the track, but the way they have it set up inside the gym, it's like another triangle shape. And then there's a dummy drag, and that's like 50 feet or 100 feet or something like that. But it's like a 180-pound dummy. And then at the end of the test, which is like, this is the icing on the cake, they make you take so there's a gun that they have there. And you basically have to extend it in your non-dominant hand, and you have to count out 16 trigger pulls. And it's inside of this little ring. If you hit the ring, you fail the whole test.
Oh, wow.
So something like that to me would make more sense than a Cooper test, because a Cooper test, it's kind of not applicable to what you're actually going to see out there, because you're not going to chase anybody for a mile and a half.
Yeah.
It's never going to happen.
Yeah.
Right. Push-ups and sit-ups. I mean, I don't know if that's equal to what you're actually doing on the street, but that obstacle course is something that you'll actually do. You'll have to scale a fence or scale a wall, go up and down stairs and things like that. So that to me makes sense, like a dummy drag, like dragging, an injured officer or like an injured victim. Those type of things make sense to me. That the Cooper test, it's good. It's like a good, entry level, but I think it should definitely be a obstacle course of some sort.
And you think that every single year people should have to like go through that? That would be one thing that you would change, you think? Yeah.
So this is what I think they should do. You should do a physical every single year, right? And then you should take a physical, like a physical agility test. So, and they should give you like points. So like if your blood pressure and everything, your blood work comes back super duper fine, you get a point for that. And then like you take this physical agility test and you get another group of points for that. And then the way like some departments do it here, like if you pass their Cooper standard, they give you like what they call a commissioner's day. It's like a day off and you could use it at your discretion. So I think that would be a little bit more of an incentive to like, hey, all right, if I crush this test, then I could, I get a day off. So to me, that makes more sense. Like passing a physical exam, right? So you go to your doctor, making sure like everything is up to par. Blood work, blood pressure, blood sugar, all that stuff is good. And then a physical agility exam. And I think that will be the beginning of a new era, because a lot of cop culture is changing now though, but it used to be like they glorified horrible eating and not working out, and it's kind of changing now. So
that's exactly where I kind of wanted to go, because I was going to ask you like why do you feel like it is kind of like such a problem? Like, because I've heard a good amount of friends of mine that are in whatever, any sort of like law enforcement. They kind of talk about how there's so many people. I even have friends of mine that are in the military, because I live in San Diego, right? So big military area. And I've had one of my roommates, my past roommates, he is in the Navy, and he would like talk to me. He was like, man, like the level of fitness in the Navy is like atrocious. It's because it's the same thing. It's like people join, they have to, pass these physicals, they have to pass the, the fitness test, forget exactly what it's called. But then it's like, once you pass, like, that's it. Like, unless you're like trying to be a SEAL or something like that, like if you're just going to be, sitting at a desk or whatever, like you don't have to pass it anymore. And like, I can understand why people be like, well, why do I have to be fit if I'm working on computers? But it's like, well, if we go to war, right? And like, it's like everyone on deck, like you will be out there. Yeah. Granted, it's not probable, but I mean, that is a possibility, and it's the job that you're in, you know? And so I don't know. I'm just kind of curious, like, why do you think it's kind of, I know that you said it's shifting back, but why do you think it got to the point where it was or is now?
I don't know, man. Like, for as long as I've been a cop, right? Think about all the cop movies you see there, smoking cigarettes, drinking coffee,
Eating
right?
donuts. Yeah.
Yeah, donuts. Like, it was never glorified to be like a healthy cop. And even if you've watched a movie where there's a guy who's eating healthy, they ostracized him or made him like look weird in the movie, right? You know, this guy eats green juice drinks, and it just was never popular to do that. It's okay to have like a big thing here is like a bacon, egg, and cheese on a roll with a coffee. So it's like they glorify that, but at the end of the day, like a lot of cops have high blood pressure, right? They have some of these guys end up getting diabetes just because of the horrible like eating habits, man. And this is a high stress environment, so I would promote healthy lifestyle, drinking water, eating, I'm primarily plant based, but just having a healthy diet and looking to put some miles on your life, because the average cop, I think, dies at like 57 or 58 years old, or like 5 or 7 years after, their retirement age, so it's just like, yeah, because you got to think about it, right? You work shift work, right? So you have somebody who your body was not designed to be awake at midnight, and then you're fighting against your body's circadian rhythm, right? So you're working the hours that you're supposed to be sleeping. So the levels in your body naturally go down, right? And then now you get a call saying a mail shot or something that spikes your adrenaline, your heart rate goes up. And then you're doing this through the course of your career, which could be 20, 25, or 30 years. And that definitely is going to take a toll on your body. Then on top of that, like, think about the places that are open that late at night. It's not the best places to eat, right? You got diners, right? And the average guy does not know what a macronutrient is. So they're not sitting there making sure that they got their lean protein, their carbohydrates, and their fats on their plate. They're going to eat what tastes good. A lot of these guys eat like toddlers. So it's like, no, it's the truth, man. Like, if you look at some of these dudes' plates, it's like, yeah, it's yummy, but yeah, you're 30-something years old, man. Your cholesterol is going to be through the roof. Like, you got to be conscious of what you're putting in your body, man. But a lot of these guys were never really educated on like what type of carbohydrates to eat, at said time. They don't know. They just, hey, man, I like a chicken parm wedge, please. And they just eat that,
Yeah, that's a whole thing. I mean, I would say that's a problem just in America in general, right?
In general.
Is education on nutrition. Like, this is, I mean, I love this stuff, right? And like, I obviously deal with a lot of people that are morbidly obese, and they're not, most of them obviously aren't law like officers or anything like that. But like, a lot of what happens is people just genuinely don't know, like you said, what a carbohydrate is. I don't know. Is butter a carb, right? And it's from meat. But like, when you don't know, you don't know. Like, when I started losing weight, man, I literally knew nothing. Like, I went from, like, for me, I'm going off on a tangent, but that's what I do. But like, for me, when I first started losing weight, like, what worked for me was cutting out liquid calories, right? Because I would drink like a 2 liter of soda every day almost. Like, and all of these little things. And so I didn't go from, a lot of people think they need to go from 0 to 100, right? When you're trying to work on your fitness. So you're eating whatever you want, and then you're like, I'm going to eat clean and chicken breasts and broccoli and a little bit of rice. And that's what I need to do. But it's like, yeah, that'll work, right? But how sustainable is that? How long can you keep that up for, right? So if you're coming from like a point where you literally ate whatever you wanted, you didn't care, and you drank whatever you wanted, if you just are like, okay, I'm going to stop drinking any calories, and say you're a big soda drinker or juice or even alcohol, right? You cut all those calories out, you're going to see results. And like, for me, what I did, man, when I first started, I just ate a bunch of sandwiches. Like, it's not the healthiest thing in the world, but it's better than going to McDonald's and getting 2 McDoubles, 2 McChickens, a large fry, and a large drink. Dude. Or I live in San Diego, so we have a lot of Mexican food here. And so I used to get like a California burrito, which what that is the carne asada burrito with French fries stuffed in it, right? And then I would get a quesadilla on the side with, again, another drink, right? And so instead of that, just making better decisions, but like, kind of going from there, it's like, I didn't have any knowledge, and luckily I saw my body changing, and I was like, how can I continue this? And then I started researching and stuff. And I think that that's another big thing too, is people think to get the knowledge that you need, it's some huge task, when in reality it really isn't. It really isn't, man. Like, it is so simple. Like, it doesn't mean it's easy, because especially if you have a lot of weight to lose, it's going to be a huge thing. But like, the things you need to do are very simple. It's just hard to do it over a long period of time because, you know, you might get sick of it or whatever. But like, man, just education, man. Like, and I'm sure, like, obviously, I mean, I've heard a lot of talks about people talking about like police unions and how they're like a problem or whatever. But like, I'm sure that there are some good things they could do, right? Like unions being like, okay, we're going to make a nutrition thing that everyone can go to. I mean, I have no idea what these things are like, but like, you know, like getting people that knowledge, like, ugh.
I actually saw a special where there was a guy who was going around like firehouses, and he was doing that like pro bono. He was just teaching guys about nutrition and how to add longevity to their lives, because of, you know, these jobs, like I said, that shift work definitely takes a toll on you too. So you got guys working 24-hour shifts. You know, you're in a firehouse all day, or like you're working, if you're a cop and you're working 12s, that's a substantial amount of time that you're spending outside of the house. So you need to figure out ways to get, you know, nutrients into your body, and figure out a way to just stay healthy. So this guy basically was going to these different firehouses and educating these guys on how to eat. You know, instead of having like white bread, have like Ezekiel bread, or you know, 7 grain. And he was just giving these guys little tidbits. And a lot of these guys were coming off of these medications that they were on for like high blood pressure and all these things. So it's just like you said, it's getting the knowledge, and it's not quantum physics, right? If you just give yourself a little bit of education, and a little bit of education goes a long way, and you just apply it. The problem is doing it over a long period of time, because sometimes what's healthy for you is not always convenient. And the problem is people love easy, right? Conveniency is everything. So I can go to McDonald's and hit the drive-thru, and like you said, get 2 McChickens and not even think twice about it. Where if I wanted a, you know, grilled chicken with like, you know, asparagus or broccoli, I got to prep my food, or I got to find a place that's out of the way. And that's another problem that you hear with police officers. Like, cops are like, they will squeeze a quarter to the eagle screams, right? So they don't want to spend the money. And so their biggest excuse is like, oh, that's too expensive. But think about this, right? If you spend the money on the food, you're going to spend the money on medication later on if you eat the horrible food anyway, right? So it's like, you're going to pay for it with your body at some point. You're going to be paying a copay because you're going to the doctor every so often because of your high blood pressure or your diabetes and so on. So, you know, you got to kind of weigh you know, checks and balances, right? You got to weigh your options. It's like, do you go out there and eat the quick fast food, right? That's eventually going to catch up to you, or do you spend the extra cash, eat the food that's good for you, and, you know, level the playing field there? It's completely up to you, man. And I think that a lot of people now are more educated than they were 20 years ago, where, you know, someone's breakfast was, you know, cigarette, coffee, and like a breakfast sandwich, you know?
Yeah. I'm kind of curious. Because a lot of times when people are like, I want to make a change, right? I want to get healthier. They immediately think, okay, what do I need to do in the gym? What type of workout is going to be best? Do you see that a lot? Because like, I personally think taking your nutrition first is much more important, right? Like, if you can handle that, that's my thought, then you can, if you don't want to go to the gym, you can make huge changes without ever doing that. I recommend working out, obviously. This whole podcast is about that. But it's like, if you say, I don't have the time, or, you know, for a lot of people, maybe they can't afford a gym membership. Like, you can change your nutrition without spending any extra money on gym, supplement, like, is that something that you notice too? Like, friends of yours that might be in the force, they're like, oh, you know, I need to hit the gym better, and then I'll be able to do X, Y, Z.
I'm just like you. I believe is what you put in your body. It's almost like it's like an 80-20. Like, if you're putting good quality food in your body and you're just moving, you don't even have to, because a lot of people get intimidated. Like, I don't want to do CrossFit. I don't want to do that. Hey, dude, if you just got up and walked every day, right? Just walked. If you walked a few miles every single day and you ate the right food, the weight will come off. But if you're sitting there and you're telling yourself, oh no, you know, like, you know, next week or like, that's too hard. Like, take the time, right, to invest in yourself, right? Put the right foods in your body. And then if you want to go to the gym, go to the gym. But you don't have to be no hardcore gym rat to lose weight. Is you got to put the right food in your body and just elevate your heart rate, right? Get it up every so often, every so many days. And that's it. You don't got to go crazy, man. Like, I think people
think that you got to be this big fitness nut to lose weight. And it's actually it's majority nutrition in what you're putting in your body.
Yeah.
You know, if there's, and that's what it basically comes down to. You know, you put the good things in your body, you move, you drink some water, you sleep, you know, you pray every so often, meditate, you know, you might be all right. But some guys they refuse to buy into that. But I mean, I'm just like, you know, I totally believe it's all food. I think exercise.
Yeah, I think a big part, especially now, is it's Instagram culture, right? It's like people see everyone doing the thing, the workout, the crazy thing, and they're like, oh, I want to look like that guy. So I need to be doing handstand presses on a person and yada, yada, yada. When in reality, that person, they didn't build their body or their fitness doing those things, right? They're just doing those things because they look cool and it's going to get them a lot of likes on Instagram. And people think they need to do that. And like, I love that you brought up walking, because that is something that I talk about all the time in my like Discord, in my like on Instagram, is people think, again, I always bring it back to people that are trying to lose a lot of weight, because that's just, you know, the people that I'm talking to most of the time, is like they think they need to go to the gym. And I'm like, if for you, if all you can do or all that you're interested in is going on a walk, and you walk for an hour, like I promise you, even if, I know we shouldn't be focusing on how many calories you're burning in your workouts, but even if like that's what you care about, I promise you, most likely, you will probably burn more calories just going on a walk for an hour than if you went to the gym and did some bicep curls. Like, it is, and you'll be outside walking around, like you won't be stuck in a gym, right? Like I'm a huge like advocate of just walking. Like I go on walks all the time, and that'll be a workout. I mean, they're long, they're like 2 hours, but it's like I'm able to listen to music or talk to people or whatever. And so it doesn't feel like I'm like I mean, I love going to the gym too, and I don't think I'll ever stop, but it's like, it's such a powerful tool that people just kind of skip over, and they're like, oh, that's not intense enough, I need to do more. And especially when you are 200 pounds overweight, man, I'm telling you, walking, and even if you're not, like, even if you're where I'm at, I don't really need any weight to lose, it's still super helpful for me. Like, and rehab wise too. Like, after going to walk, I always feel better. My body feels better. Sorry, I'm going on a tangent, but yeah.
Dude, I'm all about it, because I did the same thing. Like the other day, I went for, it's like a 2 mile walk, right? And I said, let me see how many calories I burn. And I remember like at least 2 days a week, especially in the summer. It's very vain of me, but I do shoulders and like upper body, right? So that's my accessory work. So I'll do my little CrossFit workout, and then I set my little Apple Watch up, and I, you know, figure out what I'm doing for my strength training, and I do like shoulders and like chest, right? So I get my little calorie counter. I burn more calories on a 2 mile walk than I did, like you said, doing bodybuilding accessory work. And I was outside, you know, in nature, clearing my mind, and, you know, just kind of going with the flow. And I was sweating, you know what I mean? But I wasn't killing myself. But I noticed, it's like, damn, I walked 2 and some change. I felt good. I burned some calories, and I wasn't all beat up the next day. You know, I felt great. So I always tell people, just get outside and sweat just a little bit, or get on a casual bike ride. You don't got to go crazy. Figure out there's a place where you can get on a bike and go straight. Make sure there's no grade, there's no hill or anything like that. Hop on a bike, dude. That is, you know, that's the next best thing. And I rollerblade too. So I even like, that's a little bit like advanced, but like any form of sweating, it helps. It's just, you don't have to be in a gym, like you said, doing all these crazy movements and carrying on. You just got to sweat every so often and just put the right foods in your body, bro. It's very simple. It's not hard.
Yeah. And it's like, I will always be a proponent of that. I just know it'll be a fight that I'm probably fighting until I die, because it doesn't, like, no one's making any money off of saying that, right? So you're not going to hear many people saying it on social media. And two, like, a video of someone walking isn't going to get many likes, right? So it just is how it is, but that's not going to stop me from, you know, saying what I say. The last thing that I wanted to ask you about, I'm just kind of curious. We've actually never talked about this. I know you said that you were plant-based, and I was just kind of curious about how that came about. I mean, you don't have to tell me your whole backstory, but like, I'm just kind of curious, like, how you got to where you are with that.
I don't know. I was going through something in life, and I was like angry, right? So I just was always angry, very aggressive, right? And I'm like, why am I feeling this way? There's several other things going on, but I had a conversation with a guy who went plant-based, and I watched this dude go from like a very aggressive human being to this very docile, like spiritual dude. And I'm like, dude, what have you done different to make you be, this guy that you are now compared to who you were like 5 years ago? And, he talks about all the soul searching that he was doing, but he mentioned a plant-based diet. And mind you, he was an older guy. And I noticed like he looked very young for his age. And, I remember him telling me his age, and I'm like, damn, I didn't realize he was that old. And he did not look his age. And he's like, yo, dude, I've been plant-based for 5 years, and it just kind of brought me spiritually into a good place, and physically my body composition started to change, and I just kind of went with it. Mm-hmm. And once I had that conversation with him, I tried it for 72 hours and I haven't looked back since.
Wow. How long ago was that?
4 years now.
Wow.
And I give myself, like I said, I give myself a little bit of leeway. That's why I say I'm primarily plant-based, because like my mom, right, is a Hispanic mom, and when she cooks, she doesn't understand you can't put butter in this, or you can't do, certain things like that. So like, or if I tell her, Ma, I don't eat meat, she's like, all right, well, I got fish. So I will never turn down my mother's cooking. Exactly. So fish is not meat, Poppy. So I'm like, all right, no problem. I'll eat it. I'm not going to turn down my mom's food. But, I give myself a little bit of leeway there, because I will never turn down my mother's cooking. And, but I won't physically go buy like salmon or anything like that. A lot of the foods that I eat are primarily plant-based. So I eat a lot of Buddha bowls, quinoa, Brussels sprouts, sauteed beets, things like that. And I do intermittent fasting. So that's a little different too for most people, because I'd work shifts. So my primary shift is 6 p to 4 a. If I spent the whole time eating, I would be severely overweight. So, I fast. It's usually like 18-6 or 18 hours, and then like 18-hour fast, 6 hours to eat. But usually if I have one meal and it's calorically dense, I'm good. You know what I mean? And I'm not really a big snacker. So it's like a calorically dense meal, and then I'm done for the day. And I just hydrate, man. I drink a lot of water. Any kind of water. I'm not like one of these guys like, you have to drink alkalized water. I'm not like that. Just drink water and make sure it's coming, from a viable source, and you should be good.
Yeah. It's interesting hearing you talk about intermittent fasting, because I mean, it's a lot of people talk about it, and I hear a lot of people talking about, especially for like weight loss and stuff. I think that it can be helpful, but especially someone in your position where it's like it almost makes sense to do it like that, because you don't have a schedule that's like set as far as like I wake up at this time every single day and I do this every single day, and I have a weekend, and then it's like I might be up, because you work, is it 3 days on, 4 days off? How does it work?
I work 4 days on, 4 days off, 4 days on, 3 days off. And those days sometimes turn into like 18-hour days. So the other day I went into work, I got stuck at work for 20 hours. Can you imagine that? Like 20 hours of work. You know what I mean? So it's like,
yeah, that's intense, man. Well, I
spent the whole day eating.
Yeah, for sure. I don't want to take up any of your time, because we've been talking longer than I was planning on.
I know, brother.
But I want to make sure everyone goes and follows you on Instagram. What's the new Instagram? I'll also have said it earlier in the show, but
I am Jason Lacayo on Instagram. So I am Jason is Jason. Lacayo is Lacayo. Or you can just type in Jumpman J to see my face. But yeah, I am Jason Lacayo is the new Instagram. Hopefully this one doesn't get deleted. Yeah. I'm working on some new content. Working with my boy Chris Bruno. He's a big media guy out here, so he's gonna help me out on my new journey. So
and you do podcasts, and you have other things that you do too, right?
Yeah. So I do 3 podcasts. Reps for Responders is basically police based, and it's called Inside the Labyrinth podcast. And the labyrinth is your mind, and we just talk about how people have gone through adversity in their life and gotten to places of success. So that's one podcast I do. Kicks, Cleans, and Coffee is another podcast I do, which is just me and my boys. Colossal Kev on Instagram, and your boy me, and my boy Mute the Wolf, who's like the producer. And then the third podcast that I do is from my gym. It's on Northeast CrossFit. It's called The Coaching Couch, and we just talk about the current state of CrossFit, what's going on in our area, dealing with CrossFit and the current state of CrossFit. So it's good. I try to keep myself busy, man. I want a career outside of law enforcement. I only got 5 years left, so I was actually picking your brain about that, man. I admire what you do, and that's how I started following you, man. I watched your journey, and I was like, wow, this guy's pretty amazing. So it kind of put some batteries in my back to kind of get my stuff going. And you've been very encouraging and more than helpful, dude. Like, I always say that, man. I can't thank you enough for being a supportive guy. And we haven't actually like physically met in person, but since we had that conversation, you've been nothing but supportive, man. So I just want to say I appreciate you for that. You've been super grateful, and I'm super grateful for having you around, man. Just wanted to mention that.
No, man, I love it, and I'll definitely make sure that we have links in the show notes and stuff so people can find you. But it's been a really cool experience, like just kind of starting this friendship over. I mean, it sucks that why it started, but again, there's always positive and negatives, and I think this is one of the positives that have happened for me for sure. And so again, man, it sucks that your Instagram got deleted, but we're gonna get you some more followers, bro. I believe in everyone.
I appreciate you, man. I'll be pumping out some content in the next couple of days, so I'm working.
Sounds good, dude. Thanks, man.